Welcome to the show, Dr. Shabir.
Pleasure to be on.
So we're talking about the last 10 nights of Ramadan that we're in. So why are these 10 nights so valued and sacred?
This has been explained in many of the narratives attributed to our Prophet, peace be upon him, as a time in which we can find what is referred to as the night of decree, or the night of power, it's variously called, Laylatul Qadr in the Arabic. And on that night, it is said that God decrees what will happen in the year to come, till the next night of decree in the following year. And so it is important for people to be dedicated to worship during this time, partly due to the expectation that if we are engaged in worship at this time, God may decree something favorable for us for the year to come. More than this, the Quran speaks about a special night, referring to it as the night of Qadr, the night of decree, and says that it is خَيْرٌ مِّنْ أَلْفِ شَهْرٍ. It is better than 1,000 months. So the understanding that comes out of this is that to worship on this night will be better than worshiping than 1,000 months, which works out to about like 83 years and 4 months, if that period of time did not have such a special night.
So just a technical question, because we as Muslims, we believe that everything is already written, right? That God has written everything. So when you say it's being decreed on this night, what does that mean?
Well, some scholars explain that the writing could be in stages. So there's a hadith that says that 50,000 years before creation, things are written. But that could be written in a general way, not in a very specific manner. And then we learn that on the night of decree, things are written again. So there could be some things written more specifically, like what's going to happen during this year. So whereas the overall plan was written some 50,000 years before creation, but now the detailed plans for the year. And that shows that there could be a lot of flexibility. And that gives credence to the idea that by worshiping on this night, one might expect that God will decree something favorable. So that means that within a broader scheme, God has a lot of leeway to decree something favorable for the specific individual during that time. I should add here for completeness that it is also mentioned that when a child is in the womb of the mother, there are certain things which are written as well. So that shows that the writing, according to the scholars explaining this, is in stages, and not all the I's are dotted and all of the T's are crossed.
Okay, so I think that's very helpful, because I know we always talk about, okay, if it's written, then what's actually happening on that date.
Yeah, and if you allow me, I could also add that the writing is even more than this. It's even on a daily basis, and we know that it's also like on Mondays and Thursdays. That's why people are encouraged to fast on Mondays and Thursdays, so that on these special days God might decree something in their favor. It is said to be daily in the sense that it is after the Fajr prayer and the Asr prayer, so morning and evening, so that if one is busy with remembrance of God and sacred acts during this time, then something might be decreed in one's favor. And the 55th chapter of the Quran says, "Kulla yawmin huwa fi sha'an." Every day God is involved in the affair. So the scholars explain this further by saying that it's actually so many times in a day that God looks into the record that he has, and he even makes emendations. He erases what he wants, and he confirms what he wants. And for after all, he owns the mother book.
Yeah. That's very helpful, thank you. So, you know, I know for me, every Ramadan, I usually see the mosque fill up the most on the 27th night and the 29th night. But we're talking about the last 10 nights that are all sacred. So how does that tie in with the night of decree?
Yeah, so you mentioned the last 10 nights at the beginning of our show, and obviously the 27th night occur within the last 10 nights. So too does the 29th night. But why have people paid special attention to the 27th night in particular, and the odd nights more generally, so 21st, 23rd, 25th, 27th, and 29th? Because there are some narratives which say that it's within the last 10 nights, and then other narratives which say further that it's one of the odd nights. And then there are some narratives which say among the odd nights it's the one that occur within the last 7 days. And so that will include something like the 25th, 27th, and 29th. And then there are some scholars who thought that 27th is more likely it. And so what is recommended for worshippers is that if you can only spend one night, then probably that should be the 27th night. And if you could devote more time to worship, then the 25th, 27th, and 29th. If you can even devote more time, start with the 21st, 23rd, and all the way down to the odd nights. And if further still, if you can worship on all of the nights, then please do. And more than this, it is also recommended that if one could spare the time, get time off work and so on, then one can devote oneself to worship in the mosque. Or for women nowadays, it will be like a place of seclusion even within their households. Though in the time of the Prophet, peace be upon him, we know that his wives observed this practice within the mosque itself.
And there are some mosques that do open up the space for women as well.
If that's a possibility, then that will be as it was in the time of the Prophet, peace be upon him. So in any case, what is recommended in this time is to devote oneself to worship. So this is a kind of a minor seclusion, whereas Islam does not favor celibacy as a lifestyle. One would, in a way, become almost celibate for this time, devoted only to the worship of God, not caring for any worldly things, and minimizing one's interaction with other people, except if it has to do with like teaching and learning, a religious type of interaction.
Do we know what sort of practices the Prophet Muhammad, peace be upon him, engaged in during these last 10 nights?
It is mentioned that when the night, when this time approached, he would observe i'tikaf, or this, that's the Arabic word for this seclusion that we're talking about. It is said that he used to observe for 10 days, and probably it's these last 10 nights, except for the last year of his life, in which he observed 20 days altogether. And when these nights approached, it is said that he would like tie his waist belt. The Arabic term is izar, which is really the lower cloth, but he would tie that, and that was an expression meaning that he got ready for some serious work. And the work that he involved himself in is prayer and supplication before God.
This probably answers itself, but what would you suggest for people who can't take time off work, you know, people who have exams and stuff like that, you can't defer them? What sort of practices would you suggest they engage in that might be helpful and accommodate sort of their schedule?
There is a hadith in the Muwatta of Imam Malik which gives us great hope here. It says that whoever has joined the night prayer, which is the Isha prayer that's normally done throughout the year, but whoever joins it on this particular night has gotten his share of that night. So it means that one has actually worshipped on this night. So in essence then, we know that it's not through our long prayers that we will get closer to God. It's the sincerity and devotion involved in even a short prayer. So one should worship according to the time that we have. If one has a lot of time, yeah, instead of whiling it away, doing something of no great importance, one should engage in the worship of God. But if one, let's say there's a medical doctor on call on that particular night, we don't expect that doctor to drop all of the patients and then come to worship in the mosque. In fact, that would be a disaster if he does so. No, naturally he should or she should focus on his or her important work. Service to humanity is serving God as well, and one can worship at another time. But even during that, while one is engaged in one's work, it will be important to remember the sacredness of this time that we're in, and a short mental connection with God, maybe all it takes to merit God's mercy that is deserving on that night.
What are your thoughts on social media fasting? A lot of people nowadays are, you know, when it comes time to Ramadan, some people say, yeah, I'm going to take a complete fast from social media as well? Facebook, Instagram, Twitter, etc. Some people don't. Like, what's your take on that?
Of course, some people who are not Muslims may, for their own good reasons, decide, okay, I want time out from all of this. Some people may decide, I want time away from television, time away from social media, and so on. Because we can become engrossed in all of these things and forget who we are and what's important to us and what really we should be engaged in. So some sabbatical from these things is a good exercise anyhow. When we're in the sacred month of Ramadan, and especially during the last 10 nights of Ramadan, it's not a bad idea for Muslims to minimize their uses of these social media facilities and to devote themselves to the worship of God. That's the whole idea of the i'tikaf, that we're going to be lessening our contact with people. So some contact obviously is good. If one is looking for a job, obviously you have to make contacts. Contacts for social reasons are also good, but there is also the need for devotion. And too much involvement in social media can be a detraction, not only from our devotion to God, but even from important things like work and study and preparing for our exams and so on. So one has to always make this kind of judgment and balance things. So if one stayed away from, there's no rule that you have to stay away from social media during this time, but if one stayed away for the good reasons that we mentioned, then that would be a good thing.
Hey YouTube, we hope you benefited from this video. If you liked it, or if you didn't, let us know in the comments below. And if you're interested in learning more, check out some of our other videos. And don't forget to subscribe so you can get new videos every Monday, Wednesday, and Friday.